G'day everyone, Stephen here. This is a gravity feed rocket stove that I'm building for my workshop as a means of just to warm it up in winter. I will probably modify it to become a pizza oven or something further down the track. That's the end goal, but for now it'll just be a heater. It's all made out of a 100 by 100 millimeter steel box. These are offcuts that I picked up for a steel. I didn't steal them, I just got them real cheap. And so far, the way I've designed it is so that all the pieces, all the offcuts and things that I'm notching out of the square tube and stuff, I'm reusing those as for the construction, just to keep things simple. So this is the in-feed tube. The piece of box, the wall there, has become the feeding ramp. I've notched it out at the bottom. The pattern is nothing in particular. It was just easy to cut it that way because I had hammered it in and it's wedged in there pretty tight, and I just cut it as I did. This, you're probably wondering what on earth that is. It's not a machine gun. It's going to introduce air halfway up this the burner, if you like, for the purpose of trying to burn off any remaining wood gas that might not have been consumed. It's going to go in, there's going to be a hole there, so that's where the air is going to go in. I'll just show you what it looks like mocked up. It's going to go together like that and be welded. And this is going to be inserted. It'll come in that hole there. Come out there and it'll be suspended in the middle of the tube. It comes up to about here. That's where the top of it ends. And so it's I'm trying to achieve a secondary burn, I guess. So whenever you're welding something together like this, you really want to do it the easy way, and the easy way is take your time with preparation. And what I mean by that is when you are welding something like this together, that's upside down. When you're welding something like this together, you really want to minimize any gaps where you're going to be welding, because that's, let's say you've only got a stick welder, that could be the difference between doing it in a few really clean passes or just blowing holes in it and it becoming a real nightmare. So take your time with preparation, make sure all your gaps between what you're going to weld, they're nice and tight. There's no gaps at all if you can possibly help it, which might mean sometimes going back to the grinder and reprocessing the piece just to tidy everything up. It's worth it. It's for the 5 minutes extra that it'll take to prepare the steel in a more professional manner. It'll save you an hour in welding, and many times. I've learned, take your time, do it properly. That's the easy way. Also, think about how it's going to go together. Think about, am I going to be able to get access to, like, let's say the bottom of this feeding ramp once it's together? Not easily, no. I mean, I could maybe just get at it through there, but it's not the best way to do it. The best way is to think about it and go, okay, I really need to weld this in first. And then I know I can put it together and it's done. I don't have to come back to it. And that's the same with this tube. I'm going to weld that in. That's going to be the first thing that I put in place, is going to be this air intake tube. Secondary burn. To make that easy on myself, this is, of course, will be on the inside. I'm just going to stick a piece of wood in there to keep it level, because if not, you've got to somehow try to hold that. And I'll tack it in and flip it over, and I'll fully weld around the outside. Oh, pardon me. Breakfast is repeating on me. Okay, let's do this. Probably covering that. I'm going to bring this down because the hole that I've drilled in there was the closest hole I had to the right size was at 2mm larger than the pipe, but I'll make that work. It's not ideal. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can weld stainless steel to mild steel. It's not advisable. You wouldn't do it in a high stress situation unless you had, the right welding wire and whatnot. But you can, for this instance, yes, you can do it. It will weld. Stainless steel is just mild steel, but it's had nickel, chromium, and what's the third one? I always forget. Nickel, chrome, and something else added to it to make it stainless steel. Those extra additives is what gives stainless steel its rust-resistant quality. Mind you, many different types of stainless steel. So that's going to stay there now nicely. I'm just going to eyeball that again, because providing you've only tacked it once, you do have a little bit of play if you're gentle. And obviously I wasn't gentle enough. Looks good. Now I'm just going to turn that right down. I've ended up moving the feed ramp just up a little bit. The gap at the bottom now is from the edge, it's about 45mm. In thinking about it from a just practical usage, there will be a build-up of ash, and I want to encourage the air to mainly be coming through the bottom, creating that Venturi effect. So yeah, I've just increased that. It'll also make cleaning it out a little bit easier. I think that'll be okay. Just checking, because once I weld this this feed ramp in, I'm not going to be able to manipulate the outside dimensions as much, because there is maybe 2mm of play in there. I could squeeze that in, or even if I needed to bring it out. But as far as the fit where it is, it's kind of nice, so I'm going to run with that. It's just something to keep in mind, that you should just do a mock-up before you weld it in place. I'm not going nuts with weld up the top, it doesn't really need it. Most of the stress is going to be down here. Okay. Now, oh dear me. That's all done. One more thing to weld in. This little piece was the offcut out of the front here, right? I've just cleaned it up. I'm going to weld that on there, as I said before, just to restrict airflow. It's not, I know it's not perfect. It would be better down there, but then I wouldn't be able to get any wood into the stove at all. So something is better than nothing. And I'm only going to tack it in place on the top surfaces here until I've done a test burn, because if it doesn't work, then I can just, it'll easily break out. And I can also, while it's running, I can move it within reason to adjust it. And then when I'm happy with it, if I'm happy with it, if it works, I'll keep it and weld it in properly later. But for now, that's welding on. This hole is 165mm high, this piece, and from there up, the line is 80mm. I'm just going to hold that on there. Roughly in the middle. And that's all I'm going to do for now. As you can see, it's restricting the, it will restrict the airflow quite a bit, but still leave me enough room to get an appropriate amount of wood in there. And like I say, if it's too far out, I can just bend that down or completely break it out. Before I completely stuff this up, weld it together, I'm going to tack the base plate in position. Now's a good time to get rid of any spatter. Not that spatter will stop it from working, but it might be annoying. If there was spatter stuck on this feeding ramp, it could cause the wood to get stuck on it and stop it from just naturally, from gravity doing what it needs to do, feeding the stove. Okay. So, pick your two best corners and tack those first. That side is good. That side there is lovely and flush. This side is kicked out. That's just the stress and stuff that was inside the steel. So I've got the good side tacked on. And all I need to do now is just pull that in, like so. I don't know how many times I'm going to do that. Okay, this is all tacked together now. As far as welding practice is concerned, it's a good idea to put, the more tacks you, wait for that truck. Because I'm fully welding this, because I want it airtight, I'm putting, there you go. Obviously I needed a few more tacks. That's a perfect example right there. When you start putting heat into stuff, it starts to warp and change, and you need to make sure that it's adequately tacked to be able to cope with those changes, because you don't want it to do that. Right now that's really easy to fix. But yeah, and it's also a good idea to stagger your welds. You could easily do this in one hit, but you're going to put a lot of heat into the material, and that could cause you grief as far as bowing and warping is concerned. So let's quickly fix that. I'm just going to weld this out now. Okay, let's take it out and test it. Well, so far so good. Let's get this thing going. that's working great. Well, I'm not getting any burn back, which is great. That's a good sign. That's when the fire sort of creeps back up your opening here. Now, something really interesting, which I think is a sign to me, that this is actually working, the secondary burn, is that you can see the top of that air intake tube is extremely black. It's very sooty. But further down, oh, it's hot. Further down, it's shiny around the holes, which means that there's no soot depositing there, because that air is in fact, that air intake is burning up what would have been depositing soot, if that makes sense. It's burning up stuff. It's not obvious, and I think it works better when there's more wood in there. But if you can see that, you see how it's nice and shiny down where the holes are? I think it is in fact working. We are getting a secondary burn in a rocket stove. Huzzah! And something else that's interesting is having that piece of round up the middle seems to be creating a real swirling effect of the air. It's pretty cool. I should add some wood. Well, I'm going to call it a success. The next part of this build will be putting a pizza oven on top, or perhaps even modifying this pizza oven here, which is something I made a couple of years ago, to run on this setup. In fact, that kind of makes sense. That's probably what I'll be doing next. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. It was fun for me. Come back again soon. See you, bye.